Joining me now is Peter Krull, partner and director of sustainable investing at Earth Equity Advisors. He's also the author of a new book, The Sustainable Investor. Peter, great to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
First off, Peter, I just wanted to get your response to Donald Trump's latest comments there on climate change.
You know, it's interesting when you hear him talking about climate and talking about something that unfortunately he doesn't know really much about, when the reality is 97% of climate scientists agree that climate change is happening and that it's primarily caused by human activities such as burning fossil fuels. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, where almost a year ago to the day, Hurricane Helene, which was a climate-fueled storm, devastated our area. And according to the World Weather Attribution Organization, the likelihood that it happened was dramatically increased due to climate change by a factor of 18. That is something that you really can't deny.
Yeah, and it's true also, isn't it, Peter, that methods to counter climate change are improving. We heard Donald Trump talking there about investing in climate change measures as the path to economic ruin. But I've read that some analysts say the opposite is actually true, that in some cases, renewables now produce electricity more affordably than fossil fuels.
That is absolutely true. And, the economics really don't lie on this. And when you consider that in 2024, the U.S. added 56 gigawatts of new power capacity in general, 96% of which was either solar, wind, or batteries. And again, so it's simple economics. It's cheaper to install clean energy than it is to build a new fossil fuel or nuclear plant, for that matter.
I think despite Donald Trump's comments, the most important announcement on climate change this week came from China on Wednesday. They vowed for the first time to reduce their carbon emissions, I think, by 7 to 10% by 2035. I mean, China contributes 12 billion tons of CO2 a year. That's actually double what the US contributes. So I just wonder how consequential you thought that announcement was.
Well, the reality is we are dealing with an existential crisis in climate change, and everybody has to be contributing their part to the solution. I mean, that's what I talk about from an investment perspective all the time, is that we have to do what, SRI, sustainable, resilient, and innovation. Those are the things that are actually going to push us to the point where, as soon as possible, 2035 is a decade away, but it's also in terms of this problem, not a very long time. And so everybody needs to be doing their part.
And do you think this is enough from China? Do you think in doing their part, given the role they play in the world economy?
They are doing much more than we're going to be doing, obviously, it looks like, in the next few years. So, but no, I don't think everybody is doing as much as they can. But everybody is trying to balance out this idea that we can only do so much because of economics, but the reality is that from a long-term perspective, the faster we make this transition, the less that we're going to have to deal with from an infrastructure perspective. When Hurricane Helene hit Asheville, we had a failure of our transportation infrastructure, we had a failure of our utility infrastructure, and we had a failure of our communication infrastructure. That's going to be really expensive year after year after year to have to fix, and spending time to actually make that work right, or spending the money to make that work right, is probably something that we should all be considering from a long-term investment perspective.
I mean, there are so many fights on different levels here, and it was interesting, I think, to hear the former Prime Minister Tony Blair there saying, that you have to win the war of words, as well as the sort of scientific and the economic war on climate change. And the misinformation war is a real problem, especially when you have a US president who is a climate denier. I mean, how dangerous is it to have a president, on watch right now, when you are obviously seeing, climate fuel disasters happening on his watch, such as the California fires, right, earlier this year?
Right. Yeah, I think it is dangerous, but I also understand, and I know that the clean energy transition, that train has left the station. And while he may slow it down some, it's not going to get stopped. And again, when I'm going to come back to the investment side of this, year to date, you would think that the clean energy sector has underperformed tremendously because of the rhetoric and because of the bill that really cut subsidies. But the reality is if we look at the iShares Global Clean Energy ETF, it's up about 34% year to date. The fossil fuel-based energy sector spider is up about 7%. And so people still think, investors still think that the climate transition is going to continue to move forward. And so I think the same way.
Well, it's good to end on that note, Peter. We appreciate your analysis. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.